let's go ahead and get started. So we're here to talk about the future of Woodhaven, and tonight I want to cover how we got here, the land development process and what that means. There's been a lot of questions about that that we've received from folks, and a little bit of, I would say, confusion about our role. I want to talk about zoning, future land use, and golf in Woodhaven. I know a topic that's important to a lot of folks in the neighborhood, so that's what I want to cover. So we'll just go ahead and dive in. First, to kind of recap, how did we get here? So there's been a lot of things happening concurrently. I hope you all have heard of the Interface Studios has been doing their master planning exercises with the city and hosting meetings separately from us. And they concluded a couple weeks ago and gave their presentation. And so now here we are, fast forward to the right-hand side of the slide there. So I want to spend a bit of time to kick this meeting off talking about land development and what that means. There is a difference between a land developer and a vertical developer. Crescendo Development is a land developer, okay? So Crescendo is not building any buildings. Our role in this is to purchase raw land, guide it through the entitlement process, which is zoning, platting, have meetings like this, discuss the vision, what the neighborhood wants, and try and set the stage to bring that vision to life. And ultimately work with vertical developers who then will construct structures to bring those uses that the neighborhood wants to life. And so a vertical developer is purchasing prepared or entitled land. They're working with architects and civil engineers. They're negotiating with tenants to try to occupy those buildings to bring uses that the community wants. One key difference between these two types of developers is the amount of time that it takes to execute on them. Land development is typically a very slow process. It takes months and months and years sometimes to go through the land development process. Where vertical development, oftentimes, that developer is buying a piece of entitled land. They've already worked with the banks in the background, and boom, they find their tenant and up goes the building, where land development is a much more methodical process. And some developers are really engaging and work with the community, which I hope you're seeing that I'm doing here with you, and others don't really do that. So I really want to impress the difference between these two. So Crescendo Development, our mission statement, is an entrepreneurial, community-centric real estate development company, creating value through land planning, adaptive reuse, and historic preservation of complex projects in Fort Worth and surrounding communities. So that is the difference between a land developer and a vertical developer in a nutshell. And so one of the key aspects that a land developer focuses on is zoning. And so we're going to spend some time talking about zoning, and zoning is all about land use. The city of Fort Worth has a comprehensive zoning plan that dictates what can or cannot be done in property in the city, and so that gets to uses, and so you have to have permission from the city to do whatever use that is to be done. And so as we've had our community meetings with you all earlier this year, through some of those meetings that Interface has facilitated, we've been listening and really appreciate all the feedback that you've provided. And so those uses that we've heard over and over again, golf, green space and walking trails, a community center or central gathering place. The community is really desiring a place to come together. Sit-down restaurants, neighborhood commercial, and single-family homes. And so what I'm going to show you is how do we get there? How do we go from what we have today to get to these types of uses? And so today, before that, I wanted to show this slide. This is a slide that Interface Studios had that hones in on 4 kind of elements that their study encapsulated. So health and well-being, the environment, creating economic opportunity, and additional housing. And so we're taking kind of all of that feedback and putting it into a plan to hopefully move that plan forward to create a next chapter, if you will. So today, this is what the current zoning of Woodhaven looks like. And so what I want to draw your attention to, I can't use my laser on that screen, but the blue section CF is community facility, and it's very limiting on what the uses can be there as far as vertical construction, churches, government buildings, and that's pretty much it. And obviously golf, and there's some like just land, bare land type uses like that. And then the front 9, most of the front 9 is A5 single family. And so A5 has a minimum of 5,000 square foot lots. And a residential builder could build single family houses on the front 9 and plat that and subdivide it into small 5,000 square foot lots as it's zoned today. That is not my intent or my vision. And so what you're seeing is proposed zoning that Crescendo will be bringing forward to bring the uses that we just described that the neighborhood has requested to reality, to set the stage for vertical developers to be able to deliver on what the neighborhood has requested. And so in this proposed zoning map, what you'll see is A5 on the east side. Those were zoned CF, but so switching those to the A5 single family to be consistent with what's currently around it. And then UR, urban residential, which would provide for a blend of different residential uses. And then mixed use, which is low density mixed use along the central corridor. And so these are kind of broad zoning categories that have a lot of permitted uses. So we can kind of open up the permitted uses that a vertical developer, as they're out looking for potential uses, they're not siloed into just 1 or 2 uses. It gives more optionality and much more flexibility. So taking that zoning request that we will be moving forward with, let's talk about future land use. So what you're seeing right here, if you were not present or did not see Interface Studios' presentation, this is a slide taken from their recommendation, and it shows some mixed-use development pockets going along a new roadway corridor that would come off of Randall Mill and go down to the clubhouse to create kind of a new artery to connect those two, but staying outside the existing single family neighborhood, and then creating some pockets for some park land. So this is their conceptual rendering. And so we have taken that and then those uses that were on your list, and we have come up with this conceptual plan. And I want to emphasize conceptual plan. This is one of what could be 1,000 iterations of what a land development could be, of what actually would come out of the ground. And so in this scenario, you will see that the front 9, I want to bring and maintain and keep golf as a use in Woodhaven. I've heard it time and time again, and that's really important to me. I'm going to try to deliver on that, okay? Thank you. I really appreciate that. And we'll dive into golf here in a little bit because there's a lot of nuances to it. And ultimately, Crescendo has to sell all of this land And so we're not here to be the vertical developer or golf operator, right? So I've got to identify who's gonna turn that into a reality. Okay, so this is concept plan number 1. And I'll be diving into sections of this here in just a little bit, because I know this is kind of hard to read. And we'll be circulating this later as well. So the second concept plan, if we are unable to get golf to happen, we have to have another backup plan. And that backup plan is estate-sized residential lots, not 5,000 square foot, teeny tiny sandwich them in, but large estate lots. So existing residents still have that feeling of expanse, green space. And so we're going to work towards golf as hard as we can, as quickly as we can, but ultimately I've got to keep going, and this is the alternative, but being sensitive to the desire of the neighborhood and being a good steward. So I'm going to break this down into thirds and kind of walk you through our thought process of this conceptual plan, okay? Okay, so on the far west side, that back 9, there's a lot of floodplain, and this presents an excellent opportunity to create a new city park. And so we have spoken with the city's parks department and made them aware that we're interested in working with them in some capacity. And there is a site there that is developable, meaning it's out of floodplain and it has enough room for parking, and that could be a potential place for a community center. Next, B, is pocket neighborhood residential. There's think townhouses and or like missing middle housing. Could be duplexes, but very low density. There's still green space. And this could look like architecturally a lot of different kinds of things, but this is the concept for how to use that property. So that is our concept for the west side. For the central side, this is where we hope to achieve a bit of density and bring you all some of the commercial or denser uses to really serve as a catalyst for the neighborhood. And so we'll start at the bottom, letter C. It's really important to me to preserve the clubhouse and preserve that history, and I am going to be looking for a developer to redevelop that building, hopefully in partnership with the golf course or some other use to reignite that space to be that gathering space that once was. And in our concept, ideas that we have that we're going to share with those developers that would acquire it, we're going to encourage them to do things to make what we feel like are improvements to the area, such as demolishing some of the parking on the hard corner and putting the parking in the back and creating a green space there at the corner of that new road in Country Club Lane. Reactivating the clubhouse. And then currently the tennis courts they're in disrepair. I've invited out a tennis and pickleball, two actually, companies, one of which that manages the McClellan Tennis Center they manage tennis facilities across the county. And they came on site, looked at it, and the foundation of them is broken to the point that it can't be restored properly. So a concept we came up with was creating some sort of a dog park with a little structure there that could be a concept that I think is pretty neat is a business called Mutts. It's like a dog-centric restaurant where folks can come and bring their dogs and play and have food and drink. But then maintaining some of those courts as tennis and pickleball, hopefully. So those are our ideas for the clubhouse. Letter D would be more of like an employment center office flex space that could have some retail, some daytime traffic, bringing people in during the day. During the day, everyone just leaves and there's no economic engine going on. There's nothing happening. So by providing a space that there can be some daytime commerce, that helps serve as a catalyst and generate other things to happen. And so that can look and feel like any number of things, but this is kind of a layout that has some frontage along that road. And again, parking in the rear, we were intentional about trying to put as much of the parking away from the neighborhood as much as possible to keep the aesthetic, the green aesthetic. Letter E is kind of an urban residential product, so medium, lower density residential to provide some more new housing product. And then F could be a mixed use hospitality or urban residential. I'm envisioning like a real destination. And I haven't spoken to connecting to Randall Mill, creating a new front door, essentially, to the community there. And it's that exit right off of the highway, so people don't have to backtrack along the access road. It's not a very good design, in my opinion. And so this would open it up to more folks to get to these new developments and give people a route to get there without going into the neighborhood. I hope you'll notice, well, you can't really see it here, we're not connecting Oakmont to Randall Mill. Yeah, heard you loud and clear there. So really trying to be intentional about keeping the traffic out of the single family neighborhood. And then letter G, one thing that's really important to me, I really want to make happen is an urban agricultural and education concept. I see my friend Talia back here with Econautics. If you all haven't met her, I encourage you to do so. But we're working with their group to try to bring a working urban farm to the community. And they would help maintain the ponds, keep them in good order. We're working on repairing the submersible pump that's in Riverbend right now to bring fresh water from the Trinity back, get the water flowing again, and then just create a urban garden oasis and programming for kids and families to learn about sustainable agricultural growth. So that's the central concept. And on the eastern side, we touched on golf, and I'll dive into that a little bit more in a bit. But if we're unsuccessful at finding that golf operator and investors to make that happen, this is Plan B. That will be large estate-sized lots, and I'm envisioning, really, really nice houses in well-manicured yards with driveways coming off of a lot of the existing road, including Oakmont. So the only new road that would have to be constructed in this scenario would be the one off Randall Mill there. Okay, I think that covers that. So that, again, one of 1,000 iterations that could be. And then the golf concept as well, maintaining that. Okay, so let's dive into golf on Woodhaven, because I know that's on the top of a lot of people's minds. So to make golf happen, we went to work contacting as many 9-hole golf courses in the state of Texas that we could get in touch with. And what you're seeing here is a list of the top 25 9-hole golf courses in Texas. There was a list produced by the Dallas Morning News. And so this is how we kind of did our research, by just starting here and just Google searching 9-hole golf courses. And the things that we wanted to learn were who or what owns the golf courses, and where they are, and then how are they managed. Some of them are owned publicly by the municipality, and I have spoken with the Parks Department about golf. They're done with the golf business. They're investing in Meadowbrook and they're maintaining the other courses, and the city does not have an appetite for maintaining another golf course. So that unfortunately is out. So a lot of these courses are privately owned, and so that is a path that we would seek to go down, is to find a private owner or collective group of people to come together, pool their resources to have a privately owned golf course. There are also, you'll see on there, some public-private golf courses where maybe it's privately owned, but the city maintains it, or vice versa. So we have had some discussions about the TIF potentially participating and trying to make golf happen, but the way that the TIF is written today, that is not a possibility. So that leaves us with going the public or the privately owned route. And so, okay, of this list, we also asked these owner-operators if they would be interested in Woodhaven. And here's an opportunity to buy and participate in a golf course in one of the fastest growing communities, largest populations. Oh my gosh, they've got to be beating down the door, right? Not so. But we did find one group, Kemper Sports. We're hoping that Kemper Sports can be the solution here. Kemper Sports is a national golf course owner and operator. They have courses all over the country. So they have the wherewithal to pull this off and to do it in a very professional manner. They specialize in golf course conceptual design, construction, management, and operation. And I know Woodhaven has been an operating golf course for 50 years up until a few years ago, but I can tell you today, you are starting over. The irrigation system is completely gone. The grass is completely filled with weeds. The leveling of the greens and the tee boxes is shot. I mean, it is a complete start over. So there will be significant investment needed, and an attractive, or one of the things that intrigued us about Kemper is that they expressed a willingness to explore a conversation about participating financially in the redevelopment of what was the front nine. Let me see what my next slide is. More on Kemper. They have 3 courses in DFW already, so they're familiar with our market, which is a good thing. And before I forget, a concept that they found has is getting a lot of traction is our short courses. So think like par 3 course. The play is faster. It opens it up to a younger generation, and their statistics say that that is really a way to go and something to explore, in addition to, the traditional 9-hole course. But by making it a short course, is the term they use, instead of a par 3 these days, they believe they can make it a 18-hole short course. And in redeveloping that, their vision would be a very high-end short course that would incorporate technology, and I don't know what that means. We're really preliminary here, but we at least have a legitimate operation that is sincere about taking the time to explore this opportunity with us. But they made it very clear that they would not be the whole owner and operator, but at least they would be open to design, construction, and management, and potentially participating financially a little bit to make it happen, as opposed to a private group raising money to buy the land and pay for the construction. And there's different deal structures of how to put that together to bring it to a reality, and a profit-sharing component that, depending upon who the owner of the land is, could share in that profit if it's a successful business venture. There's a land lease alternative that could be an option, where a private group buys the land and leases it out, and then that tenant pays for the improvements, but then they receive all of the profit. So there's a lot of deal structures to explore. And so what I want to do is to continue this conversation with Kemper, but invite the community to participate in this conversation as well, and potentially participate financially in trying to help me bring this to a reality for everybody, and the ownership could be in the hands of the neighborhood. And so to that end, how to make golf a reality in Woodhaven is we would have to sell the land, because that's my role here, to a group that could come together, and we're trying to sell that land for $4 million, which is $1.50 a foot for any of those real estate people in the room, to the dirt. And so we're seeking interested neighbors that would be interested in having that conversation, and then working to have a conversation with Kemper and engage them in managing that course. And so I would only move forward in a sale of that property for golf as a use if there was a management agreement and a plan in place, like where we know it's going to happen. And that's where Kemper can help with underwriting, and they've got all the tools to do demographic studies and all the things you can imagine to ensure that it is set up for success. And so we will be hosting future meetings with those potential prospective investors that would want to play a role in trying to bring this to life. And as you leave, there will be another sign-in sheet for those interested in having that conversation to participate in trying to make golf a reality. And so, that sign-up sheet will be in the front. So that is how, like, logistically we can collectively try and make golf a reality, put ownership in the hands of the community, and hopefully let it be there forever and ever. So to recap, the uses requested by the neighborhood: golf, green space, community center, sit-down restaurants, neighborhood commercial, some housing options. All of those things can only be possible if we have a successful zoning change. And so I am asking for your support for a zoning request that I will be bringing forward to the Zoning Commission and then subsequently City Council for this plan to bring those uses to life and to bring some iteration of that conceptual map that I showed you to life in some way, shape, or form. So what's next? Where do we go from here? So upcoming milestones will be Crescendo Development will be submitting a zoning request in November, and then along with that comes a process called platting, where you create kind of boundary lines of each one of those pieces of property. And then sometime in early 2025, it will go from Zoning Commission to City Council, and the platting process will go from the Planning Commission to City Council. So there's two processes happening somewhat concurrently. And then sometime in the middle of next year, hopefully the property will be rezoned with your support, and then we can get to work identifying those vertical developers to bring some of these uses to life and start breathing some life into the neighborhood. And so I will be asking for your support, and there's support letters, and we'll have more information on that, how you can express your support should you choose to, if you are in line, if you like what you're seeing up here. So with that, I'm gonna thank you very much for listening and coming out on a school night. It means a lot, and hopefully you're pleased with what you see. We're gonna open it up to some Q&A, and I am gonna ask that we keep the questions concise And if someone's already asked that same question, let's not ask it again so we can make sure we maximize on time. So we do have microphones on the, over here is lady waving her hands in the aisle. I'm not sure if we have one, okay, on this side. So if you could please, if you're interested in asking a question, if you can please come over to the side where the microphone is, we would really appreciate it so everybody can hear. Yes, sir.
All right. Again, thank you for coming on out, Will. Appreciate it very much what your intentions are. Mm-hmm. Okay, obviously, we always start with honest intentions, and we always hope for the best, but sometimes things go south. Okay, and I think you're trying to outline that as preparing us for a neighborhood of a worst case scenario. Okay, so a couple of questions I would have is, one, you very clearly say you're not the vertical developer. Mm-hmm. The plans that you're having is not necessarily what is going to be developed. Or do you already have somebody aligned to take over once you get the zoning approval?
No, I don't. My plan, like after rezoning, then my plan would be to list the property for sale on the open market and try and get as many interested parties as we can, see what their ideas are, have subsequent meetings where there can be community buy-in and, you know, see what moves forward.
So even if you had the community support to accept the plan that you presented tonight, the individual, the end buyer, might not have the same idea as what you're presenting us tonight.
That's right. That's right. So that is how zoning works. You get a use approved, and then that vertical developer prepares a site plan and architectural drawings and renderings, and that's how you know what the physical structure looks like. Zoning does bring with it not only land use parameters, but also setback requirements, how big or small a building can be, some fenestration, like how much windows, like there are architectural features baked into zoning, but it gives the developer some latitude to, create something of their own vision.
Okay. And not to hog the mic, I know there's more people standing. So the intention to sell in the way that you described, mm-hmm. and the way that it's been broken up, the next developer could come on in and say, I'm purchasing all the land and it's all going to be residential homes. There's nothing to stop him from that point on, right?
No, there is, because the zoning that's in place. The MU, here, let me put this slide back up.
I'm more referring to the A5 section or the A4 section of Oakmont and the front 9.
Oh, okay, of some buyer coming in and wanting to do smaller lots in there?
Exactly.
I mean, that wouldn't be my intention, and you got to keep in mind I have the remainder to sell. I don't want to do that. So, one idea is there are zoning categories if we wanted to, thinking on the fly here, like A10 or A25 would provide for larger lots, but they wouldn't be as big as the 2 to 4 acre lots that I would be seeking. So it doesn't make a difference on the ground of what would happen if we can't find golf.
Thank you.
You bet.
Hi, you just touched on it then. My question was about the A5 zoning, and mm-hmm. my question was, why not just go straight for the A43? If your plan B is to do lots of 1 to 5 acres, mm-hmm. why not just now zone it for a minimum lot size of 1 acre?
Sure, and we can. I have no problem doing that because that is my intention. I think as I was approaching it, I was trying to keep as little change as happening, little change as possible. That was where my mind was, sure. And not having the entire thing, a big Crayola box on the map. But if I have no problem doing that.
Okay. Yeah, I live on Oakmont Lane, backed uh-huh. up against the new A5, and I know it would make me feel better knowing, well, worst case scenario, it's going to be 1 acre lots behind me and not,
Yeah.
5,000.
Right on.
Thank you.
You bet, man. Yes, sir.
I will. I think kind of one of the big areas of opportunity is looking at the reality of the full timeline. Obviously, you have your timeline of how things you'd like to have finished and completed.
Could you talk a little closer to the mic?
Sorry.
Thank you.
So you have a good idea of your timeline of how Crescendo would like to be, where you would like to be.
Mm-hmm.
But in the reality of the whole concepts, all the concepts being completed, what's that actual timeline do you expect it to be completed by?
Good question. And it's a hard question to answer because there's so much outside of my control. I'll share that my plan was to have the land sold within 5 years, if not sooner. Hopefully as soon as possible. I think a lot of that will be dictated by just macroeconomics, to be honest. We're setting the stage for future developers to come in, and we're casting a vision to try to, entice them to want to make this happen. But we've got to find developers that build each specific product type, and it takes, still time for them. In our kind of financial model, we modeled out 5 years, but hopefully it will happen much sooner than that.
And sorry to hog this, but to follow up with that,
Mm-hmm.
kind of a curiosity reigns. Are you interested in becoming one of the vertical developers at all?
No. I really just want to focus. It's a completely different animal, and I have plenty to do here already. Yeah.
And, a couple of folks that didn't want to walk up, they asked me to ask if this would be up on the website or how you would post that
Yes.
slide.
Yeah. So we will circulate this presentation over the email. We'll have it on the website, and this is all being recorded as well, and we'll share that video.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, I was just hoping you could maybe elaborate on the mixed-use zoning. Is there like an example of an area where that zoning is current in Fort Worth? Like what would that look like? What type of?
Sure. It's, let me think. It's usually in pockets like this, and it encourages a more like urban style product where the building is somewhat closer to the ground with parking in the back. So think like near South Side, think West 7th Street, think, things like Clear Fork. Near South Side and Clear Fork, to clarify, are form-based codes, and I don't want to get into the weeds, but it presents like an MU1. You wouldn't know the difference looking at how the world looks, So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
I just had one more. So the road that you proposed to go through, I don't think it looks like it affects too many houses except all of them on my street. So that would basically kind of open up a lot of maybe possibly traffic noise and like visual problems for probably half my street, at least over there on Putter.
Sure.
So I was wondering if it was considered at all any sort of sound and visual barrier, trees, anything like that.
So our rationale of putting the street where we did, and I'm going to go to one of the, bear with me here.
We'll gladly take that over connecting Oakmont, but.
Okay, so our rationale for placing the street where we did was to, there's a buffer, a tree buffer, that will help with the sound abatement just naturally. And the land where like the buildings are located is much lower, so that will help as well. Putting the road further east pushes the buildings and like the parking and all of that further away from the homes. And so we were working to get those buildings as far away as we could. So that was our thought process. The topography and the trees are going to do a whole lot.
Okay, thank you very much.
You bet.
Hi, I've got 2 questions for you.
Yes,
Number
ma'am.
1, regarding the TIF money, it's always been my understanding that money could be spent in areas of the TIF that were not in the boundary of the TIF if it benefited the actual TIF areas. I know in the interface meeting, they even had Riverbend as part of the area that would benefit from TIF money. So there's a lot of money in the TIF money. There's a meeting next week, and I think the community would love if 4 million, as long as you could find a group to manage it, like you said with the city, possibly the group that has approached you about having golf that I happen to know, but why wouldn't you approach the TIF funding about possibly doing that if you could get a group lined up for that?
So whenever I approached the city about participating for golf as a use, it was
But
not,
even
it was
if it
shut
was
down.
TIF and you had a managing group that would take over
Correct.
the management of it?
That's right.
Okay.
And
My
so
second-
I would encourage the community to get involved in the TIF meeting.
We
There is
will.
a TIF board that is made up of community members from Woodhaven. These are your tax dollars that you have been paying into for years.
And the
It would
meeting
be
is
it would
next
be
week.
it would be a
Jay, when is
complete
it?
shame. So what happens? That TIF expires. Oh gosh, I'm going to forget.
2028.
Thank you. The TIF expires in 2028. If those funds aren't allocated to a project or like any project, and usually so TIF funds usually pay for things like street, curb, gutter, trees, water lines, sewer lines, like all the infrastructure stuff. But it is a reimbursement to the vertical developer. It's only reimbursed at the very end of the project, and it can only be used on the public components of private development inside the TIF boundary lines. So if I encourage you all to get involved in the TIF and go to the meetings, get educated about how the funds can and cannot be used. There is a TIF charter ordinance that spells out how the funds can and cannot be used.
It's very vague.
It is kind of vague. And so, I don't want to speak out of turn, but it is possible to have those rewritten or modified, updated, but it's hard to do that because you have to get all 5 taxing entities to agree to modify the language. So you're talking to the city, the county, the water, hospital, and I forget the other one, but yeah.
And
so
there is a TIF meeting next week.
So there's a
if you
TIF
look on
meeting next week. So if you go on the City of Fort Worth's website, you can
TIF 13.
TIF 13. It'll tell you the schedule, where it's located. Make sure you look where it's located because I don't know if it's an old city hall or new city hall. Old. Okay, there you go. And so those are your tax dollars, and it can be used for a lot of different things. It's certainly not everything, but it would be a real shame if that money goes to waste.
And my second quick question, have you thought about, instead of the multi-use that you have with all the different zoning, possibly considering a PD to control this a little bit more?
Yes, but the challenge with that is it's so early that oftentimes with a PD, you have site plans that are required, and that is for a vertical developer to make.
That makes sense.
And so I would be applying for a PD with no site plan. I'll freak everybody out. And I just, believe me, we talked quite a bit about this, and we landed on just straight zoning is a term that's used without any customizations, just plain old vanilla.
Well, and thank you for coming. I know the community from everything. Keeping the clubhouse as a central of the community is important. So thank you for trying to do that.
You bet. Thank you.
A couple of quick questions. First is, have you already or do you intend to ask for TIF money to support your development?
No. That is because I'm not building anything.
Okay, good.
It only goes to vertical developers.
The other question is, if you got the zoning change that you're requesting, how many units would be added to the 5,000 multifamily units we already have in the neighborhood?
I have no idea.
What would be the maximum?
It is based on the amount of land, the building configuration, the parking configuration, things of that nature.
You've done a calculation though, haven't you?
No, I'm not a vertical developer.
So you haven't gamed out what the maximum number of mixed family,
For
multifamily.
me, it's more about the form and the uses and what you're trying to bring to the community. And so whenever I look at Woodhaven, I see, all this old housing multifamily product that is, we all know it's in pretty rough shape. And we the community has vocalized the desire for commercial and retail and some additional housing stock and parkland and all of those things. And the way you achieve that is introducing some amount of density to afford the other things. And so in our plan, we've located it in a central confined area, tried to push it as far away from the single family community as we can, and working to work to identify that vertical developer that is going to do something in good taste, that is going to, bring balance and more opportunity to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
You bet.
Hi, Will. Mike Pepe.
Yes, sir.
Two quick questions. One on the G, urban agriculture and education.
Uh-huh.
Have you any idea of who might be interested in doing something like that with that land?
There's a group called Econautics.
Who?
If you'll turn around, that's Talia.
Oh, okay, I like her. She's nice.
Yeah, she's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Talia is the CEO of Econautics, and so we're working with her group to bring that vision to life.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And then second question, and maybe I missed it. One of the nice things about living in this community, I feel, is that we get to use the cart path and walk the whole community, and it kind of creates a great way to get around.
Absolutely.
In your planning, are we going to be able to still walk around and not have to go on the streets where there are no sidewalks? Or
Good question. Yeah, I am all about walkability, and you all didn't bring your magnifying glasses here, but there are sidewalks. And when you leave tonight, we have printed out very large poster boards of these for you to view as you exit. But to answer your question directly, yes.
Okay,
we're going to have
beautiful.
lots of walking trails, walking connectivity, walking back and forth. Yes.
Thank you, Will.
You bet.
Enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you. All right. Got a couple more questions, maybe?
Hey,
Yes,
Will.
ma'am. Hey, Talia. Thanks for being here.
So first of all, I just wanted to say thank you so much for trying to include as much green space as you can in the development concept.
You bet.
If you don't mind, is it okay if I just quickly clarify a couple things with Econautics?
Please.
Okay. So just so you all know, my name's Talia McAllister. I'm CEO for Econautics. We are a nonprofit that's newer to Woodhaven, and we are exclusively focusing on Woodhaven right now for the foreseeable future. We're looking to do the urban farm, but that will be a long-term project. Initially, what we're actually looking to do is some environmental remediation. So for those of you who are worried about the things like the A5 zoning and all of that, I would encourage you to maybe come talk with us and see if there's ways to help us raise funds, because the more land we're able to purchase and secure, the more land gets preserved for those agricultural and environmental purposes. And then the other thing I just want to let you know is I'm focused on creating a cradle to college pipeline for kids in this neighborhood from everywhere, from the houses, but also from all of the apartments. And the idea is that we start with them coming out and playing, then as teens, potentially getting stipends to work as lab assistants or to work alongside college students who would be testing soil, doing all kinds of different field lab work for different higher education institutions. And then the idea long-term is to get scholarships and guaranteed admission. So that's our vision for what we're trying to accomplish. If that sounds like something you're interested in, I definitely recommend you come talk to us. Again, because we're a small nonprofit, we're newer to the neighborhood, it's really gonna be all about how much we're able to raise over the next year or two to make this happen. So let me know. Thanks.
Thanks, Talia. Yes, sir.
I'm just curious about on the fairways. What's the plan to keep them, I guess, looking nice until it gets developed? I mean, are y'all going to continue to mow, continue to take care of the fallen trees and all that good stuff?
Yes.
And then after all that's said and done, and would houses be going inside the fairways? I mean, how would all that
Sure.
work? I mean,
Sure. So first, let me apologize to those that live on the golf course. A lot of our mowing efforts got redirected to the 3 commercial tracks that were acquired with the golf course. We've been working with code compliance because we've been receiving a lot of complaints from neighbors adjacent to those commercial tracks of homeless encampments and some bad behavior, I guess, over there. So we've been working on clearing out brush and garbage, dumpsters and dumpsters of garbage and things of that nature. And so that has kept that crew busy. But we have, we're close to wrapping that up, and we will come back to the golf course, and the plan is to have a consistent, we're gonna mow the entire course again now that the grass is dormant. And and I know there's a couple downed limbs and trees and whatnot, and we're taking those out and mulching them as we can. Example of that is the tee box on T10, where we took out 2 or 3 dead trees and ground the stumps, and so those weren't a hazard anymore. So we will continue to do that, to answer your question. The placement of the houses will be dictated, I think probably in large part, by a lot of the zoning setback requirements and access to utilities and how the driveway can lay out and the topography. So all of that combined, I can envision for each lot will have its own kind of plan.
Well, like say that we're on the 7th fairway. That's pretty much a big circle. There'd be no access to get into the 7th fairway, except with a golf cart. So,
yeah, we'll have to work through that more. I'm trying to see where you're talking about.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
My name is Dick Arnold, and I had a couple wanted me to ask you this particular question, because they are getting a little bit older, as we all are. Their health is not the best, and they presently have a nice-sized home, two stories, but they want to know if there would be a place where there could be residence for single-story, and pretty nice facility, and have the use of the clubhouse.
Sure.
So it's kind of hard to read the zoning in different areas. So.
Sure. So I'm so glad you asked that question, because that hasn't been touched on, like senior living. And with new construction, that can be a possibility, either in the single family homes, even in like a townhouse with an elevator installed, or a true senior living, or possibly even assisted living facility near the clubhouse, like where D is, that could go there. So I very much would like to see that become a reality. And as we're out there seeking bids from vertical developers, we will be, I can kind of envision how we'll organize and go about our efforts to target specific developers and find those that are experts in their specific field. And one category we would very much like to
Thank you very much.
address is that. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Will, I had a question for you. On one of your slides, you had a proposed zoning change in yellow, but the golf course to the east of Oak Hollow was not highlighted. Are you planning to change that to housing, to residential?
Sure, let me show you. It was because that land was already zoned A5. So
Okay.
This is the existing zoning. And this is why we chose A5, because it is just a continuation of what was already there. And so if you'll see the 2 blue on holes number 1 and 9, they're currently community facility, but in our conceptual plan, that's a residential use. And so we just decided to show it as A5 to be consistent with what's already there.
Okay,
It's
so
purely that simple.
So all the houses east on Oak Hollow, because that was a golf course, that little skinny little section there? that has like a creek to the east of it. I can come up
Okay.
later and show you. but
Yeah, I'll hang
it wasn't
around.
highlighted, and I was just curious if that was the plan. Like, the first choice was the golf course, and if that doesn't go through, you were gonna switch that to A5. And I can come after the meeting and show you that.
Okay.
The reason why I asked is it wasn't in there. Yes,
Right.
like on that slide right there. So if you could look on that road, Oak Hollow, I don't know if you might, in
Okay.
Oakmont Lane, that skinny little strip that goes up to the end of trail,
Okay,
behind those houses is the golf course. And
Okay.
it's not highlighted, and that's why I was,
okay. If it's not highlighted, it's because we were not going to change its zoning.
perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Right. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you all very much for coming out tonight and your patience leading up to this point. So a few asks. If you are, first I ask that you will please support our zoning request. I ask that if you're interested in participating in the golf concept financially, there will be a sign-up sheet in the entryway. And I think that's it. Thank you all. I appreciate your time tonight. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.